Well, it's Friday and it's time for show business. And you do know that a few weeks ago we had a conversation here on our showbiz segment about the informal fashion sector in Ghana. Well, our focus was centered around local tailors making clothing for their communities and neighborhoods. Following this, our culture journalist Kenneth Awachidako has been exploring the town over the past weeks and has discovered a few things that have led us into the second leg of this Oyadiye industry. And this pertains to another crucial aspect of the industry, which involves imported clothing or FOS, as it is called in the local parlance. Now, Kenneth has returned with more details on this industry and its significant impact on the fashion space. Let's get more on that. Kenneth, thanks so much for joining me on the marketplace. I guess that is the reason why I hardly see you around. You've been chasing the guys, yeah. So tell me how important this industry is.
So we would want to understand how the role that it plays in our life. So I think on Sunday, I found myself in Accra, somewhere in Accra, where there was a festival called the Bruniwau October Festival. So basically, they were using thrifted or second-hand or imported clothing and recreating them into nice garments. And then there was a runway, session as well. And then there were vendors around who were also marketing their product that have been made from secondhand clothing. So there were tailors, artisans who have the skill of putting those clothing together. And so basically, because of the conversation we had the other time about the Oyadi industry and how those people were actually creating, providing a service for their own community, that sort of, put, some thoughts in my head about how these secondhand dealers are actually contributing to the fashion industry as a whole. So basically, you may not want to admit it, but a lot of my friends, for instance,
patronize them.
Yes, they do patronize them. You won't find them openly saying that where do you get this clothing? They may tell you that they got it at this boutique. But if you pull them to one side and ask them that where exactly you get this dress, they may tell you that they have a plug. And that word plug is a whole another conversation on its own. They may not want to tell you, but they go to Kantamanto and then get the very best of the clothing that they want, and then they wear them. They look fly, but you may not know where they got it from.
And I see, but really, are they appreciated? Are their presence being felt within the industry?
So if you look at the economic demography of the country, basically, a lot of people who are marginalized when it comes to finances. And so because of the thrift nature of these products, instead of, saving up a lot of money to get a clothing that they may not be able to afford with what they have, they may rather go into some of these, low budget shops and then get the secondhand clothing and the thrift, as they now call it, for a much lesser price. So when it comes to like financial empowerment, there's some sort of, burden taking off of the pockets of people who do not have that much to, get into the fashion space. So basically, there's also people who basically have the thrill of going like that hunt, the thrill of going there and then finding things that they may not find anywhere else. Because there are some products actually that may be very expensive on the international market, like maybe you may find a Zara that you may not be able to afford. But when those products find their way into the second-hand system here in Ghana, someone may find it like, okay, so I'm wearing a very global brand basically, but on a low budget. And so these are some of the things that it's helps for the local people to actually get into that fashion scene as well. So when it comes to like the importance to these people, it is very, very economical, and that's what they say.
All right, talk to me about the challenges these players face, really.
So the challenges stem basically from the wider picture. When you look at the global figures, for instance, Ghana is the biggest importer of second-hand clothing. Wow. And this has been so since 2002. 2001, we were second. And then from 2002, we have been the biggest importer of second-hand clothing. So you understand how much of a wide, array of economic space that covers. Because if you move from Ghana, the next countries that are there are Pakistan, Ukraine, UAE, Kenya, amongst others. And so if you look at the fact that it forms about 4.13% of the country's imports alone, you understand that it plays a very crucial role. And so looking at that brings a lot of challenges. Ghana, for instance, receives about 15 million items of, every week, 15 million items in second-hand clothing. And so that's how much of a challenge that poses. So basically, these clothing sometimes have, shorter lifespan, and so you do not wear them for too long, and then they go out of the system. And then also it also sometimes leaves problems when it comes to, you know, wastage among all those things. So there are a variety of challenges that come along with that.
But Kenneth, you would agree with me that we've got to maximize this great potential in the industry. How do we do that?
So many have called on legislation, maybe an outright ban. Some have, you know, advocated for some sort of regulation and not an outright ban. So that's a conversation that's ongoing, but there hasn't been any comments on that from government as well. Also upcycling, like we saw over the weekend, where the vendors who are dealing in these second-hand clothing were recreating them into very nice garments to where people feel like the upcycling is also a way to go. So others also, you know, proposing the fact that big brands should be able to be compelled to pay a fee for creating the waste that end up on the shores of Africa or developing countries who may not have contributed in any way to that particular way. So basically, there's that as well. Upcycling and also legislation are some of the things that people are calling for to ensure that these, you know, the menace that comes along with being a thrift shopper or, you know, second-hand clothing are curtailed, basically.
I don't know that you've patronized their works, have you?
I have a few things. I'll connect you to my plug.
All right, thank you very much, Kenneth Awochi Dakon, for the show business segment here on the market.